Well, hello everyone. I am here with Eniko from 𝑓ineNToMe.
Hello, everyone.
She is a wine content creator from Austria, originally from Hungary. We're here to talk about influencer marketing, I think, because this is one of those areas which can be quite tricky. And just to give you guys a background as well, I'm not a content creator, technically. At least I'm a content creator, not an influencer. I'm creating content for a living, actually, as well. So my company is all about wine digital marketing and winery brand management, winery representation in the UK. And digital marketing is a big part of the business, and social media, and within social media, influencer marketing as well is a major part. And we all know that influencer marketing can be very, very powerful nowadays. It's a major industry, but sometimes it's quite controversial as well. And I think that's why we have to talk about it a little bit and hopefully give you guys a bit of a guidance here. So how to start, how to approach this whole project if you wanted to work with influencers. So first question, is influencer marketing for everyone? What is your take on that, Eniko?
I think it is for mostly everyone, not everyone. Everyone can approach it differently, I think, depending on where are they in the wine business. And so I would like to actually come maybe with an example I just had this weekend. I went on a wine tasting in Hungary to actually taste wines, get networking, obviously, because this is one of the major part of my job is to get networking and get taste wines and then see if I can work with someone and how can I work with someone. And I think that's a really good example. So basically I went to taste wines with wineries. So that was like a big walk around tastings, that you can go in the different wineries tables and then you can get to talk to them and taste the wines. And depending on what I'm doing as a content creator or what is my audience. So for example, I do everything in English, even though I was in Hungary and I'm Hungarian. I'm doing my marketing things and influencer thing in English. So when I really like the wines and I was thinking of maybe I could be a potential partner with this winery, I had to ask the question first if they actually exporting wines, because this is one of the things that I think every winery as well they have to see and have to think about if so are you importing, you're exporting, which is your main market. So
Yes.
is it for everyone? But you have to find the right audience for you, I
Yes,
think.
I suppose target markets is quite
Yeah,
obvious because you don't really
yeah.
want to pour a ton of
It's
money into
obvious
an
for
influencer.
you, but it's actually not obvious. That's what actually I learned a lot in this industry or in this business. That what's obvious for me, it's really not obvious for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Especially if you're talking about wines. For example, me as an influencer, I'm talking about wine and wine education. There's a lot of things I think that's obvious, but I'm getting back questions that's just it's obvious for me, but a lot of people, it's for them, it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
actually.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that's exactly one of those points where you don't want to pour a lot of money into an
exactly,
influencer who is not actually on your target market, who is not talking to your
exactly.
audience. And I
Yeah,
think that's where everything starts. And this is, I suppose, probably the first thing to think about when you considering influencer marketing. Who are you going to use as an influencer to start with? You have to do a very deep research, I believe, about all this, because you don't necessarily want to work with everyone and anyone. For example, I'll give you a perfect example as well. A slightly different scenario, but one of the clients I work with, they want to launch a almost like a new product, and they put together a list of influencers they really like and gave it to me, and they said, okay, do you think these guys are good? And I went through them and I said, yes, most of them are absolutely fantastic, but there were a few examples who didn't actually, I didn't feel they aligned with the brand identity. So I actually told them, look, the guy is brilliant, and the guy is absolutely, the content what he creates is absolutely fantastic, but there were a couple of things. One of them, his main channel was TikTok, and the brand I work with is not on TikTok. So I don't know why we would actually approach the person on the first place. And the second problem is that the person is actually talking about mostly wines from supermarkets, whereas the brand who I work with is a more upmarket, more premium end wine retailer. And I don't think the influencer's audience is actually any use to us as a customer, as a client. I don't think they're gonna go for that. So this is where I suppose where money comes in, really. And this is the point where we should be talking about the money side of things as well, because we want to know how much money we're going to actually spend on something like this, and where is the return on investment comes in. What do you think about
So
that?
what I'm thinking, we were talking about this previously, and what I said is that for me, influencer marketing, I think it's best to do it as kind of like a package, like a campaign style. This, I think we're gonna go back to that later on. But so that's something to really invest in it, but what you invest in it, it's basically advertisement, right? So it's kind of like what you had it 30 years ago, even right now as well. People are spending fortunes and fortunes to have an advertisement in TV that's 30 seconds. And honestly, most of the people, if I just start with me and my family and all of my friends, as soon as advertisements comes into TV, you switch the channel. And actually the brand spent a fortune on a 30-second ad that not a lot of people watches. What I think is that influencer marketing, you actually spend usually way less money than in an advertisement in the TV, depending on which influencer you find, obviously. And you spend money on advertisement on a person whose following is actually listening what he or she says. So it's not like an advertisement just poof out of the air, basically, like in TV, that sometimes it finds the right audience, sometimes it doesn't. So this is where we go back to the first topic that we have. If you find the right content creator or influencer, then actually you are targeting people with your advertisement on the right place. So you might not gonna get back exact numbers that X bottle of wine has been bought because of this influencer, but there is a chance. So for example, if you find an influencer that they have audience in, I don't know, X country, that you didn't sell a lot of wine, but you're trying to maybe go into that market, and then after a couple of weeks or something you get, I don't know, 3 or 4 sales from that country, it could be the influencer. You won't know it 100% sure, probably, but
there is going to be no right answer here in terms of that there's no real way to actually find out the real return on investment value here, because it's very difficult to actually track where the traffic comes from, and even if it comes from the certain social media channel where you're actually pouring money into influencer marketing, you most likely to do other activities on that channel as well. So you're never going to actually know where all this money will come back from, or whether it is coming back at all. But I always try to approach this subject from a slightly different angle, because I worked with influencers many times before, and in many ways I'm representing a brand. For example, one of my clients wants to work with influencers, wants to include influencer marketing into their portfolio. And I have to explain to them all this, because their questions are very often the same. Where is my money coming back from? Or is it coming back? And when it's coming back? How much of it is going to come back? And obviously, you can't give them a straight enough answer on this one. But this is, again, very much true to the whole subject of social media in many ways, because it is just one single element of social media influencer marketing. And then social media is just one single element of digital marketing. And digital marketing is just one single element of the whole marketing strategy where you are building your company's existence. And I think very often you just have to see this as a part of it. And it's in many ways, it's a necessary part nowadays, I think. And I always view this influencer marketing as almost like a brand awareness tool rather than a sales tool. And I think this is how we should be viewing the whole social media as well, a little bit more. So yes, it's a very difficult topic, but when you think about it, that's what the client always wants to know, whether they get the money back or whether they don't. And I think it's very true what you said, that you can try and advertise on television if you have the money for it, but that's again one of those things which probably not going to come back to you at all. So
because that's the thing. If you find the right influencer or content creator that actually they authentic, and on the other hand as well, what I saw, for example, like big brands, I'm gonna name it, but still in the wine business, and they actually having influencer campaigns with celebrities, not influencers and content creators, but celebrities, that they have not much to do with wines. Honestly, I think that's kind of as well, it's not exactly a waste of money, but depends on what you want to advertise, obviously. But this was just like very basic things that you can't really get anything out of it. And then I don't know which one is better to pay but because still like big celebrities, they're taking a fortune of money instead of this influencer. That's the difference as well. Are you gonna reach out to a celebrity? You might gonna reach hundreds and thousands of people. That's possible, even millions of people, depending on how big is the influencer, obviously. Are they really gonna be the right audience for you, the right target audience for you? Or you wanna go for someone who's having like 10,000 or even less than 10,000 followers, but they actually know what they're talking about and they getting the right audience for you.
Sorry, that's another very interesting part of the conversation as well, in terms of the number of followers. Because that's often a question which I get asked. If this influencer only have 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 followers, depending on the size of the company who we're dealing with, is that the right audience? And I often say it doesn't matter how many followers you have if those followers don't convert into actually customers. It doesn't matter, because somebody with 2,000 followers can convert 20 people into customers, but sometimes somebody with 20,000 followers only gonna convert 2 people. So
and this question actually goes back kind of your money part as well, because obviously usually that's the case, that's the general case, that an influencer who has less followers, they're gonna charge less money because of the lower
size,
follower count. Yes, still have to make the work. That's why they cannot do it for free if they're doing it professionally, because it takes time and takes effort to do it. But you're gonna actually have less cost, so it's a bit more cost effective to actually go lower follower count wine influencers or content creator, then you go for someone who's having like 50,000. You're gonna charge way more money, and then you don't know, because both of the cases you don't really know, obviously, exactly if it came back or not. But it depends as well how big is your company and how much money you can actually spend and spare to influencer marketing.
And this is another topic which we're going to go in a little bit later, how to look at this potentially as the part of a bigger package. But you mentioned something else as well here, is content creator, because you mentioned content creator or influencer. We put down how to choose the right content creator here. And then when we talked about this question, we actually were discussing what is the difference between influencer and content creator, because there is a slight bit of difference, and many people just think it's about, influencer became a bit more negative sounding word in recent days.
I think with
And
the
then
raise,
now we moved on to content creation. But
yeah,
it's actually, there is a bit of difference there, isn't it?
yeah. And exactly, you are the perfect example because you just said at the beginning that you create content, but you're
But I'm
not an
not an influencer.
influencer.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what we were discussing this before when we were setting up these topics, that influencer is, I think, someone kind of like me who actually gives its face and name of its own
Yeah.
opinion that's going to influence their audience. That's the influencer that's influencing the audience or followers that they have to. Let's just make it really simple and easy. You get me a bottle of wine, and then I'm telling my opinion about it, that I give my name and my face, that's my opinion. That's why I like this wine. I always like to go into why I'm promoting or why I'm putting this wine on my social media, and not just maybe burping down a couple of tasting notes, but like make a why out of it, obviously, I think. But that's only obvious for me. That's what I just told you before.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I'm putting my face and my name behind my opinion and my decision. And while a content creator might not gonna do the same, which
Yeah.
actually translate to our next topic. I don't know if we can already go to the next one or not.
Well,
That
we can. We can.
we have the UJC, or user generated content creators, which
Yeah.
is kind of again a creator that's basically faceless, right?
Yes. Or it doesn't necessarily have to be faceless. I think the main big difference between them is the influencer. We're paying an influencer to actually get their audience
Yes,
as well as
exactly.
their opinion.
The other thing, yes.
And UGC creators or user generated content creators are the ones who don't necessarily have to have thousands of followers. You don't have to have any followers. You have to have creativity, and you have to be able to create good quality content for the brand, post it.
And the right style of content for
Yes,
your brand.
exactly.
So you have
And
to find
that
the creator that actually creates the one that it fits in your brand specifically. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think that's a very good topic as well, because influencer marketing and UGC creation is becoming a little bit more blur, because we don't
Yeah.
know who is an influencer and who is a UGC creator, and sometimes influencers are UGC creators. Often
Which can be.
UGC is cheaper, but
I
again, it's
actually would say exactly the opposite. The
really
UGC
okay.
are usually more expensive. And it's probably because when you have an influencer, you basically, what I just said, you pay for the influencer's job and then putting this out of their followers or audience, and kind of end of story. You have nothing to do with that content anymore, kind of, right?
Yeah,
Because in this case, you are, if you're not specifying this in your contract or your agreement, you're actually not entitled to use this content. It is the influencer's content.
yeah,
While an UGC content that they're creating for you, you can actually use as you like. So you can create advertisement out of it. You can post it wherever you want, which can still translate in a lot of conversion depending on where you're using. If you want to use it in Google, if you want to use it
yeah.
in new social media, if you want to use it on your website, it's up to you. So what I think, what I see is that UGC creators actually charging a bit more money, because sometimes it actually takes more work, higher quality work, because it really has to be like top high quality work. It's not about followers anymore, obviously, what we just said. It's about quality content, really, really, really high quality, way higher quality content should be than the influencer, depending, obviously. So sometimes I think that's actually a bit more expensive than the influencer content.
Well, I assume it comes down to
To the audience
quality and
again.
size and everything, and
and
audience. And
and yeah, and it's exactly that. It depends on follower count of the influencer. So that's what I
yeah,
said, that can be cost effective if you go in a smaller influencer. But if you
yeah,
go on UGC, that's usually you have the price that you have to pay. You cannot really, you can negotiate, but you don't have that big of an opportunity to negotiate the price as of
yeah,
with an influencer.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a very big and very convoluted topic, because obviously we mentioned UGC creators influencers, I think we're talking about micro influencers as well in some cases, because micro influencers with only 1,000 or 2,000 followers, they just get a bottle of wine and they're happy to do content for it, especially in the beginning when they're building up, and then they start charging money. But again, and that goes back to a little bit about the money question, because I think how much money can you pay for all these campaigns as well? Because when you're talking about influencer marketing, as I mentioned, I worked with influencers before many times, and I get loads of quotes from different influencers for different jobs. I think the major one, which is for a small medium-sized wine company, and one of the content creators gave me a quote for a reel. I think it was a reel and two stories, and it was something like £600. And I just said, thank you very much, that's very kind, and that's where the discussion ended. I didn't close down the discussion, obviously, as in a negative way, but I just simply explained that we don't have the budget for it. I suppose in many cases you have to be, you have to align with your expectations as well, and go to the right influencer to do
Exactly,
to do
because
the
you
job
can,
for you
yeah.
as well. But going back to this previous question, how to choose the right content creator, influencer for yourself, what are the criterias? What would you say are the criterias
What
for
I mentioned,
choosing?
I think it's first of all the audience. So where the audience is coming from, or where does
Yeah,
the content goes, obviously. So for example, my situation is a bit for me it's a bit annoying, honestly, because I'm Hungarian, I live in Austria, but I do everything in English, right? So I just actually had a conversation before, or like it's not a conversation,
yeah,
just a couple of messages. And I was asking if this winery, whatever winery it is interested to work with me or not. And what I get back straight an answer, just because they checked my LinkedIn profile, is that we're not marketing right now in Austria, so we don't want to. But they didn't take it into consideration that because I'm doing it in English, my actually audience, my main audience is actually not Austria, it's more like English speaking countries, exactly because
yeah,
of that, because I'm talking English, I'm writing English. So it's not going to be Austria. That is Austria. That is a good part, Austria and Hungary, because I'm talking about mostly Hungarian and Austrian wines. But the main thing, it's coming from English speaking countries. So first of all, I think you have to check the audience and
yeah,
not just say no straight away, because the content creator, that's the beauty of content creation. You can be everywhere. You
yeah,
you you don't you can live wherever you want. And then depending on most likely the language you're doing your content, if I would do it in Hungarian or German, then I understand I understand why someone doesn't want to do it. But because I do it in English, it's
yeah,
different. The other thing is the authenticity, I think. For me, honestly, a good content creator or wine influencer, let's talking about specifically wines,
yeah,
because we're not here from fashion, we're here from wine. I think it has some sort of knowledge. You don't have to
yeah,
be per se a sommelier before. It's not the criteria. But if you don't know exactly what you're talking about, that's going to be difficult to talk about it in an authentic way
yeah,
and find your whys. Because I can see sometimes content creators, they have maybe really basic knowledge, or they don't really have a lot of knowledge. They just there to for the fun to drinking wine. I mean, that's one point of view, that's one
yeah,
angle. But honestly, all this restriction they came into the wine industry, especially in advertising excessive alcohol consumption. I don't think that's a
yeah,
that's the best way to market wines or to market alcoholic beverages in general. So and that's why, because a lot of people out there, especially that they actually just consume content, they actually know really little about wines.
yeah,
So I think that a good influencer and content creator is not just creating content for a winery that like that's a really nice wine, that's a beautiful wine, but you actually try to find the wine and you have to try to educate about the either the grape variety, the region, the winery itself, like to give something extra other than just that's a nice battle, because like this, I don't really
and
feel this authentic, honestly.
and I think authenticity is well, nowadays I think it's an overused word, but I use it quite often as well because I believe in it. And I think that's one major part when I'm choosing a content creator or an influencer, whatever you call it, to work with. For me, one major factor is always to have somebody who in one post doesn't talk about the low-end supermarket own brand Cabernet Sauvignon, which is so amazing that you never tasted anything so beautiful before. And the next post, we're talking about, Premier Cru Champagne or fine Bordeaux, fine Burgundy. I understand that in both cases, the wine can be good value for money, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to go into a relationship with an influencer who is willing to say absolutely amazing and absolutely beautiful things about both ends, because we all know
Yeah.
that you either like this or you like that. You can obviously like both wines, but
But that's
not
that's
of them will
actually,
be exactly the
yeah.
same.
It's kind of, I think, if someone is interested to become an influencer and try to do these courses and everything, there's a lot of them right now. I did it as well, because this is how I learned, instead of going to university to do marketing, which I'm not sure that's actually the right place to learn about influencer marketing either. But so what this course is, the first thing that they try to teach you is to actually niche down. And if you have a niche, if you have the right niche and you stick with your niche, then these kind of things shouldn't happen. They still happen, because money is money, is always money. uh,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
these things shouldn't really happen so much.
And I think you just said the right word. It's all about money, and that's a major point for me when somebody is just sending over their rate card and saying, okay, this is how much it's going to cost, and I know that the person is actually talking about, for a big supermarket, they're talking about a small winery, they're talking about other products as well. It's for me, I want authenticity. I want to know that person can say no to a big brand if they don't actually like the product what they're producing, and they don't just think about the money. They actually think about their followers, the people who are actually listening, because it's another major thing in influencer marketing where very often it's underestimated how much influence they actually have on people, and that they have a responsibility for their followers as well, not just for the brands
Yeah.
but the followers as well. And I think that's another
Yeah.
important factor. But also, what about, do you often get asked for engagement levels, or do you often get asked about
I
your
think
reach?
wine influencing is such in baby steps still. Looking at like fashion or
Yeah,
makeup or whatever, wine marketing is such in baby steps in the influencer industry, that so far not much. Everyone was looking at the follower counts and then maybe audience, but
yeah,
not a lot of engagement part. And honestly, what I have to say, I think that's kind of the difficulty in the wine industry, in the wine influencing industry, that wine content, because of all these alcoholic restrictions,
yeah,
it's actually getting pushed really, really hard out there. I think it's really difficult to, especially in the EU, I think,
yeah,
especially in the EU. So I can see myself as well. I'm going to be really straightforward. I can see that even my content is getting lower engagement or lower likes, not even engagement, because I get the comments, but likes, because comments are coming usually from your really loyal followers, right?
yeah,
Your really loyal audience. Stories are getting a bit better. They say that stories are the ones that you can actually sell things, obviously. You can
yeah,
put links and everything. And like is coming from usually non-followers that they just scrolling through
yeah,
sometimes and liking. And I actually get less likes, because I think with all these restrictions that we're getting in the wine industry, it actually affects social media. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be the future. It's probably it
Yeah.
is the future still. But yes, you have to look at engagement, obviously, but not necessarily just likes.
Yes, and followers, obviously,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
most companies looking at follower numbers and they say, "Oh, we don't want to work with anyone who is below 10,000 followers."
yeah,
And I think they're
exactly.
making a major mistake, because how much you spend on a bigger follower account influencer can be well over the budget what you wanted to spend, and it's probably not going to bring
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
any more than a micro influencer, for example, with a few thousand followers. And that brings us to another topic as well. I think this is my belief. I believe that influencers are brand ambassadors, and you have to treat them as brand ambassadors,
Exactly what I
because
said, that they actually give your face and your and its name and its face
and
to the wine or to the brand that they promoting.
but I'm not
Exactly.
just talking about that part. I'm also talking about in terms of, not just use them once or twice. I think you have to build a relationship with them, and that relationship has to last a long time, because then if you build a relationship with these guys and girls, I think you as a brand going to sound more authentic as well.
Exactly.
Because you don't just put X amount of money into that person and that person and that person, and every that's often a case as well. When there's a big campaign, 10, 15, 20 wine influencers popping up with the same content, obviously it's grabbing attention, but that doesn't
A
mean
lot
that
of attention.
yes, but that doesn't mean that all these 15 influencers will be used all the way through a campaign or all the way through the lifetime of a company. So I think that's another major factor. You're going to be aligned with certain influencers, certain content creators. And I think if you align with them and you work together, it's becoming more of a partnership than just
Yeah,
a
exactly.
one-way
And
transaction.
actually this is something that influencers try to use more as well, to build a partnership and not have a collaboration, but like build a partnership. If you're interested to have a partnership, this is what usually I try to do. That, for example, if I get a 6 bottles, because this is what it fits in a
Yeah,
box, right? 6 bottles of wine from a winery. Usually I have a campaign for 1 week, that's like 3 4 wine goes straight, so it pops up
yeah,
in that week
regularly.
really
Yeah,
really intensely. Yeah, but then I always have 1 or 2 bottles back, so then it pops out in a week or in 2 weeks, so it comes back because this is how brain works, right? That it has to come back, it has to come back, so they won't forget it. So if like someone sitting at home that I would like to drink a nice Chardonnay, so then they're looking up, or
yeah,
they're looking at their brain, and then if there's a Chardonnay that it pops up all the time, or like I want to drink, like, I don't know, an Austrian wine, then why should I take? And then
yeah.
that's the first thing that they're gonna pop into this mind, that this winery's name or whatever. It's because they're constantly in the run, they're constantly there, and not just once or twice, but like constantly.
And yeah, I mean, repetition is good, as they say in digital
Yeah,
marketing and social media. Obviously,
yeah.
you sending emails about the same thing over and over again. At some point, people will react, because very often people don't know if they need this product. And then when they realize, they're not willing to buy immediately. And then the third time, probably, they're going to understand, okay, I actually want to try this because I heard so many things about this wine.
Mm.
And I think it's very important to talk about it in a context of a marketing strategy, because I believe influencer marketing been in existence for a long time, longer than we think. We didn't name it before, but obviously when there were no social media, we still looked out what is a football player wearing, what is a Formula
Exactly.
One driver driving. That was influencer marketing in many ways as well. It's not just about social
Exactly.
media. Social media gave it a name, and social media gave it a wider, easier reach, probably for smaller creators as well, to become one. So you don't have to be a Lewis Hamilton to actually influence
Exactly.
people.
Exactly
You
what I said about the right audience and engagement as well. Yes. Yes.
So I
While you're
think,
reaching out to celebrity or a sportsman, you might not gonna find it, but then yes, you have these smaller
and,
niche down influencers that they actually gonna find the right audience.
I think and that's why it's important to talk about as part of your marketing strategy, because what often happens is people, especially small business owners, who don't have necessarily the budget or the full scale strategy how to approach a product launch or how to approach the brand awareness generally on the market, very often just go in and say, okay, I'm going to give X number of bottles to this influencer and X number of bottles to that influencer. And then some influencer who has 10,000 plus followers, obviously, we're going to pay them as well. And suddenly you're spending a lot of money, but you're not necessarily getting the right amount of value back because you didn't think about it within your marketing strategy, because everything is connected to everything. So the influencer should be talking about the same thing, what your general social media content is about, what your email marketing is about, where you spending your advertising money, for example, on socials or on Google. So I often recommend to clients that think about it, because it could be very expensive. You have to choose the right people, and you have to treat them well. You have to treat them as your brand ambassadors as
And
well.
I think that what you mentioned, that partnership, to build a partnership, that's one of the aspects as well. That, for example, when I'm trying to have a partnership in another winery or wine brand, I always
Yeah,
ask what actually, like like sometimes they asking me which wine I would like to try or which one I would like to put on my
yeah,
social media. But for me, it's kind of like a conversation. So which one you want me to do,
yeah,
because if I like your wines in general, probably you have maybe an entry level or premium quality or super premium quality wine, right? So which one I really like this quality, for example, the premium level wines. Okay, let's do premium level wines. Which wine is the one that actually sells the most or sells the less,
yeah.
or
Which
which one
which
you
are
want
your
to
hero
promote?
products, basically?
Yeah, which one you want me to promote, because I like the wine, I like all the wines that you have on that level, basically,
Yeah,
because honestly, if you work with wines, you like a lot of wines. It's not like that I don't like Syrah, I don't like Chardonnay, I don't like this and that, like
yeah,
that you're not really a good professional, I think. But like, I like this level, I like, I don't know, 8 wines of your assortment here. Which one
yeah,
actually the one that you want to promote? Because I think that is the partnership, that I'm not the only one decides and you're not the only one. It's that let's have a conversation. Always have a conversation with the influencer as well. So I would like to promote this and that because, or sometimes I get this, can you actually mention this and that?
yeah,
Obviously, that's why we are here actually. So it's an advertisement for you. So you are my client. So obviously it's the same. The winery is my client. So I have to satisfy them just as much I have to satisfy my audience. That's why
yes,
it is a job, I think, because you have to work, you have to do the job, you have to put the work in it.
yes. And I think it's also a very important thing what you just mentioned. I think I use the word treat them well, because what often happens is wine companies don't actually appreciate the amount of effort and the amount of time goes into content creation. If you're just talking about content creation just to create a good reel, could take could take hours if you really do it professionally
Exactly.
and want to create the right content. So on its own, it's a lot of time already. But on the side of it, you actually adding your face and your personality to this package, plus your knowledge, and which is again extra value. And then the third part of this is that the influencer is actually giving you the audience, their audience,
which
to
which
this.
the influencer has to manage, the
Yes,
community that she or he has to manage. So that means to answering comments, to
Yeah.
always putting them out, even if it's not your winery or not your
Yeah.
wine brand. That's why you're paying for the follower account, because she or he is actually worked for building up that follower account.
Yeah.
So that's why you're paying the amount that you're paying. It's for the work that put in the content, and the work that put behind your content into the community, or the social media.
It's a very dangerous game, obviously, with micro influencers. In many cases, the influencer is very happy to do it for a product, for example, or a few, let's say, 6 bottles of wine, or if you're sending them something. But it's very often, especially if they're doing it for a living,
I know.
they have to earn money.
I
And
know
I think that's
exactly.
a key element to it. Although, on the other hand, when you're spending too much money on one single influencer, you have to consider another factor, that the influencer is actually getting free products to create content with. You're paying them to build their own audience as well. So it's a two-way street. And I think if everyone
Yeah,
respects each
yeah.
other, I think we have to understand this. So yeah, there's obviously there's a lot to talk about in this subject, but it's a tricky business. And I think
Exactly.
we all have to understand from both sides, from an influencer point of view and from a brand point of view as well, that this has to be a collaborative effort.
Exactly.
It is a
we have
partnership, and
to,
that's
we
what.
have to talk. That's what I said. It still does matter if you're promoting a 50 euro bottle, you're promoting a 10 euro bottle.
Yeah,
How this bottle gets to you? What's the budget? Like, for example, usually influencers, they should ask, what's your budget, so actually I can align a package or something to, because let's say you just said it should be a marketing
strategy. Yeah,
strategy. So it's not like usually one post, but it should be like kind of a campaign, a package. Most of the influencers, they're doing as well. If you, for example, getting a higher package, you can get some discount, and you can get maybe more content out of it. From your money, you can get more content, so it's actually
yeah.
still cost effective if you're doing it in the right way.
Let me go to a few comments here. I think it's
Yeah,
probably
okay. I still
worth.
can't see anything, so you're doing the comments. There's a
Sorry.
lot.
There are a few, and I just wanted
Okay.
to pick up on a few. I think quite important. There is a LinkedIn user who I don't know. It might be a restriction on his or her page, but anyway, from experience, the only audience you can directly influence is the D2C audience. Wineries in Europe are not often capitalizing on this the same way as the US or New Zealand wineries, as they don't consider D2C a viable income stream. They are too afraid to disrupt their wholesalers. There's a couple of things there. I think in many ways, it's true that D2C audience, it's obviously probably an easier one to approach. On the other hand, in terms of the European ones, I think Europe works in a very different way to the US, I believe, because in the
And
US,
even country to
D2C.
country is different, really, really
Yes,
different.
so
Country to
in terms
country.
of D2C marketing in the US is obviously big. In Europe, is it, at least in the UK, traditionally everything works through wholesalers. And
Mm.
I think it's just a traditional way of doing business here. And I believe D2C could be a very, very effective way as well. But do you see that the audience can only be directly influenced is the D2C audience? Or
I think
is
it
that
depends
true?
on your platform as well that you use. But I can see now there's more and more wineries. I'm more talking about wineries because this is where that I
Yeah.
can see more than the wine retailers or wine shop or whatever. So wineries nowadays, I think, have more and more wineries. They actually set up an online shop on their website, so they don't necessarily need a wholesaler to to sell their wines even outside of the country, like in another country. And I actually met wineries even on Saturday when I was on a tasting in Hungary, that they selling most of their wines through their web shop. So they actually have less work with retailers and wholesalers, and they just selling a lot through their web shop. So
Yeah.
so definitely I think you can do more influencing on customers straight
Yes,
straight
on
to
D2C.
them.
Although
Yeah.
on a slightly different level, when you're talking about a major wine brand, which is, everyone knows, I think
Mm-hmm.
a more generic influencing can be
Mm-hmm.
done and can be very effective, because just a few big names, without naming any wineries, they're probably not going to listen anyway. But Whispering Angel, for example, as a
Yeah.
rosé, if you do
Yeah.
a lot of influencer marketing about it, it obviously has an effect. But they also don't need that much anymore, because they are on a much more elevated level
Yeah.
in terms of.
Yeah.
It's a very tricky, but it's a very very interesting point of view and a very good comment. Whoever sent it in, yeah, there are people talking about great conversations. So important to make sure your values align. Completely agree. In terms of
Yeah.
aligning the
This is what
value
we
of the
said.
brand
Yeah.
with the influencer is absolutely necessary. So you can't really.
Yeah. Even if with the UGC creator that we just mentioned, that
Yeah.
you have to find an UGC creator that actually can create the style of content that you need on your
Yes.
brand. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely
Exactly.
you need to have your values aligned as well.
Yeah. 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 And then what else is there? Gonzalo replied to Lee's comment completely. Also, they need to be realistic with the followers they have, and what percentage of sales would come back to the producer. If you promote supermarket wines regularly, your followers won't spend on fine wines, because they are used to paying £7, £12 for a
Or
bottle.
less.
Or
Yes.
less, yes, or less.
Yeah.
And
Less.
that goes back to the point what I mentioned about that creator whose content I actually really like. I think they very brilliant content creation skills. However, if his or her audience doesn't align with the target audience, what we want to achieve, in my opinion, it's a complete waste of money, and I wouldn't
Exactly.
touch it.
It is.
So
It is.
in terms of the percentage of sales, it's a very difficult part. Again, we discussed this in the ROI question. Return on investment here, we're never going to know. I don't think it's possible to see. You can look at analytics, you can see where the traffic's coming from, where they landing in terms of which landing pages they arrive to.
Usually, yeah, you can have the ROI on your newsletters. You can have it on Google Ads or whatever ads you have. Even I actually have a client that they have a web shop that you can see from Instagram, for example, if someone went from your ad to the website, but you
Yes,
won't know if they actually purchased anything. So it,
yes, yeah.
it doesn't it doesn't give you the analytical data on that.
And then
So,
and the
advertisement, you can pay for paid ads, not to influencers, paid ads, but still you won't know. On the
yeah,
other hand, paid ads you can set up obviously if which audience you want to reach or like the
yeah,
location and their interest, but you will not know. It's exactly the same, and you spend this amount of money on your paid ads that you still don't know that you can actually potentially spend on an influencer whose actually audience is you already know that they're interested about wine and that sort of wine that they are
yeah,
promoting before you because it's there for a while. so
yeah.
so you know.
It's a very broad topic, and I think
Yeah.
there's so many things to talk about in this topic as well. But that was, I suppose, that was the basics, and we tried to
Kind of.
sort of
Yeah.
gather them into smaller topics within a topic. But I suppose there's so much to talk about. The call to action here, because with as a digital marketer, we have to include a call to action,
Always
guys.
call to
Exactly, always a call to action. We can't live in our dreams. We have CTAs coming up. Other people have money signs and dollar signs coming in, and in our eyes and
for me
our
it's call
brain.
to action and an introduction. These two lines,
Yeah,
on the caption, the top of the caption is the two lines that it's like lose or win. So that's the thing,
Yes.
and the call to action at the end.
Yeah.
The middle
Exactly.
part is less interesting than the
Yeah.
first, the second.
So the call to action here is, if you guys want to know more, please comment, drop us a DM, or just reach out. We're both very happy to answer questions, and we
Yeah.
both very I suppose social people, or at least social media people. I don't know. But anyway, I
Both.
don't get out too
Yeah.
much from the house. But yeah. So anyway, guys, drop us a message. Thank you very much for everyone who joined in, and thank you very much for everyone who commented. And please, guys, honestly, reach out, drop us a message, and we're happy to continue this conversation. And
Yeah,
Eniko,
likewise.
thank you very much for your time as well.
Thank
This
you
morning.
for inviting. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really, really interesting
Yeah,
topic.
and I hope we delivered some sort of, I don't know,
insight
some
or
insight or good vibes, or at least more confusion into your lives. So
or
yes,
maybe
thank you
we
very much.
cleared out some confusion. If we created confusion, then that's the time to send us the DM.
Yes,
so we can
exactly.
actually clear out the confusion. So yeah,
exactly.
definitely. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
And
Bye.
see you. Bye.